Good morning. We are officially on our last week in our travel nursing contract. We've been in California for roughly 8 months. Feel very fortunate for the learning experience. Feel very fortunate for traveling. It's been amazing, man.
Yep, and we're doing something different this vlog. We're not traveling, we're not going anywhere. We're gonna give you some tips on travel nursing. Stay tuned.
Yep, see you guys in a little bit. It almost feels a little surreal thinking about the fact that this travel nursing assignment is coming to a close. I only have a few more shifts left here, closing off the last week of travel nursing. And usually it's a good point, I would say about 2 to 3 weeks before your contract ends, to start thinking about your next step, your next moves, right? Are you gonna go home? Are you gonna go on vacation? Are you gonna try a new contract? If you're gonna go home and go on vacation, you're gonna need to figure out how to ship your car. You're gonna need to pack up. You're gonna need to take everything that you brought with. You're gonna need to bring it all back. If you're gonna be looking for another contract, get back down to the basics. Pick a location. Do you want to renew the same contract? Are you very satisfied with where you are? Maybe you want to just stay here, stay where you're at. Completely okay. You want to travel to a different climate, different destination. Maybe you want to change shifts. It's a good thing to consider as well. And also, what kind of nursing do you want to do? Do you want something as intense as a COVID unit, as the ICU, or do you want to take something less acute, maybe in a more of a community-based hospital, a community-based ICU where it's not as critical? A lot of things to think about. Another one to think about, forgot to mention, is how much hours do you want to work? If you just got done working 5 days in a week for the last 3 months, 6 months, maybe it's time to take some time for yourself and work 3 days a week next contract, or just not work at all. A lot of things to consider. I'm excited. It's been a great time. I'm sure Matt has something informative for you guys to say as well.
Taking a quick 30-minute lunch, and I just thought about reflecting these 8 past months. Some things I learned along the way. One of them is always stand up for yourself. So a lot of things might happen. You're a lone wolf. You're a travel nurse. You're contracted. You might have some cattiness with the staff. If you feel like you're getting treated unfair by nurses, maybe higher acuity, you're floating a lot and they're not rotating floats, do up. Stand up for yourself. Chain of command. Tell your recruiter. Things don't have to be the way they are if it's a bad situation. That's one thing I've learned, is bring it up. For example, I've floated 3 different times, 3 days in a row, and had 3 different assignments. I bet you best believe I brought it up because that's fair. I believe in the transition of care. The next one is to plan ahead. So those 3 months, those 13 weeks are gonna fly by. That last month, maybe the last 3 weeks, start finding out where your next contract is going to be. Look at contracts, maybe multiple agencies, see what's going on, where the hot rates are. Start looking for homes around the area, because that time is gonna come like that. And then it's your 2-week warning. You're gonna be barely trying to find an assignment on top of trying to get all the educational stuff done before your next assignment. So do that and check your pay stub. Because one thing I've realized, and at least one time per contract, every single time I compare my pay stub to the hospital hours versus what I'm getting paid, there's either missing overtime or they're just giving me a straight 12 hours. They're not giving me that double time, the 0.25 and all that. I want every single damn penny since I'm there. So make sure you get it, check your pay stub, create a note when you clock in, clock out, or do a printout every 2 weeks from your Chronos, and you're gonna be able to see what you're getting paid. It's very important. Another thing I learned is negotiate your contract. And that goes with everything. So you are a contractor, you decide the terms in a way for the most part. So if you're doing a 13-week contract and you only could do 8 weeks like we did here in this hospital, we negotiated that. We actually only are working 8 weeks. So even though the contract says 13, you're able to do things. Just ask. And the last thing is, don't sign a longer lease. So your contract might be 13 weeks. You might extend and have a total of 26. You're going to be there for half a year. That doesn't mean you should sign a 1-year lease. If you plan on staying there for a year, things might happen. Acuity might change. Guess who's going to get cut first? You. So I met nurses that signed a lease. COVID ended, rates dropped, the hospital didn't need them. Well, you're going to lose a lot of money canceling your lease. So best thing to do is either Airbnb, hotels. We use Furnish Finder. Find a month-to-month leasing. It'll save you a lot of damn work. And ultimately, you'll just keep on learning. And as we are with travel nursing, it's just, there's so much to it. Time to get some food and wrap up the shift. So in our travel nursing journey, you might be wondering why we chose California. So in 1999, they passed a law that limited the amount of patients a nurse should receive. So for example, in the ICU, it's 2-to-1. Med surg might be 5-to-1. And in 2004, a research study came out that showed that nurse illnesses and injuries decreased by 30% since this law came into effect. So I chose nursing because I get to have a break. It's mandated, it's law. I believe every nurse should have a break. We have resources like a mid-shift nurse that could help us take patients onto tests and things like that. You have your guaranteed breaks. Nowhere I worked, we did not have that. We had to cover each other sometimes. Of course, things get busy. And yeah, just understanding how stressful nursing already is. Why would I go to a state that doesn't stand by me when it comes to patient ratios? And I believe patient ratio should be across the board in every single state, but what can we do, right? So yeah, California is the way to go when it comes to travel nursing. I'm about to dig in here and I'll chat with you guys later.
Finishing off the week here in Pasadena, thought I'd share some quick little advice and quick tips on getting a good travel nursing contract or completing your travel nursing contract or just looking for your future contract endeavors. The first thing is probably to stand up for yourself. Make sure you know your worth. So if you're thinking that your contract could be a little bit more, could pay you a little bit more, that's definitely something to address. Don't be shy. We're built in a system with money, so whatever you sign on that line is what you're going to make. And a good thing with contracts is you can look around on the web and see what the average income is for nurses in that particular town or state. For example, a paycheck in Oakland might look nice for a nurse in Chicago, but not necessarily give you enough money to live in Oakland. You know what I'm saying? Another thing to always keep in mind is have a good relationship with your travel nursing recruiter. A lot of times they're able to sacrifice a little bit of a margin for you to make a little bit more, especially if you're consistently going to them. So take care of yourself and take care of your recruiter. So basically we've been in California now for almost 8 months, you could say roughly. And we did 26 weeks in one hospital in Santa Monica, and then we did another 8 weeks in a hospital in Pasadena. So we thought it'd be a good idea to go over our experience and kind of review these hospitals that we've been to.
Yeah, and the first one was good. It was properly staffed, so even though we were in like the pandemic of 2020 and shit was hitting the fan, and in 2021, like overall that place was staffed adequately where we didn't have to go out of ratios. So what that means is in California they have mandated ratios, and if your hospital or the state declares, or however that works, county, that you're going out of ratio, you might be taking up extra patients. So luckily we never had that scenario. We always actually had PPE for the most part. Sometimes we had to reuse it, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah, I think we were only short-staffed like a handful of times.
Yeah.
And with us being short-staffed, that was usually during COVID, like the prime. So we were short nurses sometimes, but we always had like extra runners if we were short nurses.
Yeah.
So that was always beneficial. Even though they wouldn't do any nursing care, they would still help you get supplies, they'll help you set up things, they'll prep things for you. So it was a little bit smoother because you didn't have to come out of the room as often.
Yeah, to be honest, if I was to compare which hospital would be better to work during COVID, this is a tough one, but I feel like in this hospital contract that we're working, it was better because our runners, we call them nurse extenders, what they did is there was only 1 or 2 on a unit, and they would kind of check our Accu checks, maybe deliver some equipment if we needed it in the room, or they would help with the bed baths. Very, very minimal when it comes to care. These nurse extenders here, they were actually able to do patient care. So I think an ICU nurse had 4 patients, or 3 or something like that, 3 to 4, but she also had an extender. So that person would be doing medications and anything like a PCCU nurse would do, or like a tele nurse. So they would do a basics, the ICU nurse would be managing the drips, and they would be managing the vent. And also what's nice here is their vents actually came outside of the rooms. So when your patient's desatting, you actually could click 100%. You don't got to gown up quickly in the room because the patient's desatting to change vent settings. So that was a huge plus on this hospital side.
Yeah. Regarding acuity wise, I think they're both acute hospitals, and they each have their own different acuity, you could say, but they're both really acute because they both do open hearts.
Yeah.
The only major difference is we did, or you did, or nurses at St. John's at ECMO there, and they did CRT. Here, they don't do ECMO, and they're starting their CRT program in the near future. So, on that aspect, CRT and ECMO acuity-wise, that they don't have here, but I feel like they have more open hearts here and more impellers compared to they did in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
So this is more like an open heart kind of unit, you could say, but without the ECMO and the CRT. But the CRT is going to be coming soon. So acuity-wise, I'll probably say they're about the same.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was harder definitely to staff at St. John's because they had like sometimes like 5 or 6 like 1-to-1s. You know, those CRTs or ECMOs. So they had a harder time finding staff. But overall, like teamwork, like honestly, like I'm blessed. We are blessed to be in these 2 hospitals because they've been nothing but great with us.
Yeah, teamwork wise, both great, both equivalent. Break wise, we had better breaks, I would say, at Santa Monica.
Yeah.
Just because we were on nights and we had that hour. Here we only have 30 minutes, but it's not a big deal because any kind of break means no break compared to the Midwest.
Yes.
And also the snacks and food. We always got snacks in Santa Monica all the time.
Yeah.
Literally all the time.
Because they were a bougie facility.
Yes.
So they always had donors and stuff like that giving food, donating. Like they had a program, dedicated to that.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. And bouncing back to breaks. So technically, when we worked at the previous hospital, we had a total of 1 hour and 15 minutes of actual off-unit breaks. Here we have about 45 minutes, so we're losing 30 minutes when it comes to breaks. It makes a difference, man. It does make a difference because I like facilities that group up a break and a lunch together. So I like a place that does a 45-minute lunch.
Yeah.
You just need time to eat. Like I'm rushing in 30 minutes trying to scarf down my food, especially when we're intermittent fasting. I'm gonna be consuming like over 1,000 calories in that one meal. I need some time to eat.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about floating as a travel nurse. And floating as a travel nurse, it happens, but it depends how often it happens, and it's also going to depend what facility and how your contract state things. So when it comes to floating, you can sign a contract and you can negotiate that, and you can decide what units you're going to float on. For example, the previous place we worked at, we could float anywhere. So we actually went down to Med-Surg. Actually, no, we never went to Med-Surg in the previous place. I went to Med-Surg like in Kaiser, for example. I was floating anywhere.
We did PCCU one day, remember?
Yes.
Each.
So we did that in the previous facility. Here, they only float you to PCCU. So you only go to step-down care, like a step-down ICU unit. We're not going to float to tele, oncology, none of that. When I worked at Kaiser, that was all on the board. And in our contract, when we signed this one, it stated that we could only float to that specific unit.
Yeah.
So when it comes to floating, yes, you'll float as a travel nurse. It sucks because when you float, you get put into a place that you have absolutely no idea where you're going to work. And yes, there's times that they're not going to give you an orientation.
Mm-hmm.
So this facility we worked at, literally they took us to DOU. They gave me a phone. This is what it is. Just had to figure it out. Had to figure where everything is. And you just ask questions and you just roll with the punches. That's what it is to be a travel nurse. You just kind of roll with the flow of what's happening. You can't change it. If you're stuck there taking care of those 4 patients, might as well just be optimistic, take a deep breath, ask questions, and just go from there, right?
I personally don't mind floating every so often. It's just when it happens continuously, when I get frustrated, because I don't mind, like, the feeling that I get when I float. It's like, okay, cool, new environment, I'll see something new. Yeah. Right? Because it's ICU, but we see almost the basic stuff. Like we see like the standard things that we see depending on what hospital you work at, right?
Respiratory failure, standard, always.
And then and certain hospitals have more strokes. Certain hospitals have more traumas. So you kind of get those fundamentals and that kind of basis.
Yeah.
So I actually don't mind floating sometimes because it shows me other things in nursing.
I also wanted to mention that just because you're a traveler doesn't mean you're always going to float. So some facilities actually have like a cycle where Sometimes it's only the travelers. Yes, I've experienced that, like in Kaiser, so that's why I choose not to return to those facilities. But most facilities will have like a roster that actually alternate based on the dates when you're floating, so you won't get stuck floating like multiple times, and you'll kind of like hate your job because of that.
And both hospitals have that. Santa Monica, we took turns floating, and same as well as here.
Yeah.
They have like a chart next to your name. There's like a number or something. Last time you got floated, last time you got called off. So I feel like a lot of majority of hospitals are willing to do that for you.
And just like that, we wrapped up our 8 months. Wow, does time fly by? Travel nursing is a freaking fun experience. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a nurse break. We're gonna start off by doing a 2-week RV trip. We're going to the Pacific Northwest, so make sure you guys are subscribed. We're gonna have a ton of vlogs, checking out all the good locations, hikes, best waterfalls. We're gonna have a ton of guides, so stay up to date there. And then after the RV,
as much as I'm looking forward to the RV, we're also looking forward to taking a nice 2 to 3 months off. And that's amazing about travel nursing is you can work your winter months and then spend your summers anywhere in the US. But make sure you guys keep following us, like, comment, subscribe, keep checking us out. We're gonna keep providing high quality content for you, and see you next time.
peace.